Good morning and welcome to the AI Executive Podcast, essential briefing for leaders navigating the age of intelligent automation and artificial intelligence. I am your host, Nick James, and with me is our resident AI expert and White Glove AI's Chief AI Officer. Today, we're going to be diving into some controversial news, Cluey.com. Some of you may have heard of it. And then we're going to jump into all things robotics. This is the next frontier of human machine interaction, collaboration, is taking AI out of your computer, out of your browser, and putting it in a machine that can do physical activities. So let's get started. Jason, good morning. Thank you for joining.
Morning.
Let's jump into Cluey.com.
Yeah. So it's a new tool that was released, and they've got a lot of opinions on both sides of the aisle about it. So their tagline is to help you cheat better. So they're utilizing AI to help you cheat, and this came from two guys out of Columbia University, and they created a automated tool to help you pass all of these coding tests to get into all these enterprise companies, the Googles, the Metas, things like that. And they passed every single test because it was able to hear the questions. It would give them pop-ups. So think of it like the Black Mirror. It's just
Yeah.
popping up and having an augmented reality.
Kind of like Jarvis, yeah? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, just in your ear. Yeah.
But it is just got opinions flying at it of they focused on a very viral launch, and this guy was at a date, and it just had a wall in front of him, and it was
Yeah.
popping up of
Yeah.
all the things that he should say, and she's like, "You're
Wait,
not
he
old
wasn't
enough."
old enough for her, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at the end, he's like, what did he say? He's like, oh, sorry, I gotta go play like, I don't know,
Yeah.
like whatever one of those games, those RPG games at the end. That's hilarious. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So these guys dropped out, and they were
Well, they
previously
they didn't drop out. Like, that's the nice way of them getting kicked out of
kicked
Columbia.
out, but they were kicked out because of a tool they developed called Interview Coder, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was
Uh,
helping them, coding test as a part of the interview process. It was what they created was the able to answer every single question and become an expert. And that's where a lot of people are saying, you're not really showing what you know, you're just showing what you can get access to. But
yeah.
if you think about it, you know, up until Gen AI came out, 99% of coding was Googling.
That's true. Or what's that called? Not Substack. Um, Stackflow. Stack
Stack Flow,
Overflow.
yeah,
Stack
Stack
Overflow.
Overflow,
Yeah, Stack
which
Overflow. Or
is that even still around, or did
I
they
mean,
go?
yeah, they're doing all right. I think they added some Gen AI features, but yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the composition of. Let's talk about assessments and testing and like just the general. I feel like a lot of what I read is that investors are still really interested in this because they are challenging the age old notion of memorizing something and recalling or regurgitating it onto an answer sheet. So what are your thoughts on challenging these sort of like this ideology that's been incumbent for so long?
Well, and it comes down just to a moral definition of what you're defining as cheating. Is Googling cheating? Is being able to pull information from a Gen AI to build out your product much faster or build out a solution much faster? Is that cheating or not? Does everything have to be individual thought, individually created? In today's world, I don't think that that's the case.
No.
It's really that fine line of when you should and when you shouldn't. And one of the posts that I saw off of his X feed was, okay, well, this seems like a great opportunity to have standardized test taking rooms that if you're hiring a engineer, you go to that test taking room. Think of it as you're taking your certification test for CISSP or any of these
Mhm.
other certs. you had to go into a room, you
Yep.
didn't have all these extra things, and you didn't have AI in front of you and in your screen what you can look at and be able to give answers. So I think it may open up a new avenue of how you're evaluating and how you're interviewing people.
So let's talk about interviews. I mean, like obviously, COVID popularized remote interviews. Is does this mean that in-person interviews are going to start becoming the norm?
I think I don't think so.
Okay.
I think for certain roles that is required. But even if you think about utilizing this tool for sales calls, you're able to answer anything a customer has. Is that,
That's
a
not
considered
cheating.
cheating? So like
No, it's
this
not
is
cheating.
something that I think is going to be the norm. I think they went very viral and they focused more on the making it get legs and be able to say everyone's cheating, everyone's going to use this tool and go forward that way,
Yeah.
instead of what this is just another augmented LLM to be able to help you answer questions.
I want to poke some holes in this, like sort of quote unquote ethical dilemma. So I'm gonna sort of chart a trajectory of from a student to becoming an employee at a company, and how this tool continues to stay with that student as they become an employee, and how it becomes being completely wrong and evil to being completely right. So let's say as a student, I'm using this to answer tests and do well on tests while I'm still learning. I graduate with grades that perhaps are a little bit more inflated or higher than normal. Then I get into, I graduate. Now I'm going into an interview and I use this and I cheat my way into getting the job. And then when I get to the job, now it's offered to me as a tool that's paid for by my company to help me with sales. But so all of a sudden now it's okay, right? So
Right.
it's funny how it changes from good, bad to good.
Well, and I think that especially on the school side, school is all about memorization.
It is.
Is memorization
Yeah.
critical key skill that you need anymore? You think about, when we grew up, you'll never have a calculator in your pocket for the rest of your life, so you need to figure out how to do long division. Oh
Right.
no, we
Yeah.
actually do have a calculator in our pocket.
Yeah, I think that that construct or that the ideology that assistance in memory recall is no longer sort of an ethical issue anymore, and I think that I think that it's the optics of it is really what's the concern here, right? And I think that the access to that tool to all who are in that, let's say that grade, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. The problem is that not that Joey's using it, but Jane doesn't have it. It's more about does everybody have equal access to the same tools? Because everybody has access to Google, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
not everybody's using Cluey. Cluely, sorry.
Clearly. Yeah.
Um,
But
anyway,
and that's going to be the digital divide that's really going
yeah,
to
yeah,
define the next 3 to 5 years is
yeah.
how can we get more people access to these AI models to be able to help upskill themselves and upskill their lives and their trajectory.
So let me ask you for some advice, and advice. As a parent, you're a parent of a older child. I have three younger children. As a parent who is responsible for enabling my children with all the right tools to be successful and becoming good economic contributors of society, what would you do?
I think the biggest thing that is necessary is for the problem solving skills.
Yeah,
How do you problem solve and utilize AI as a complement to your problem solving skills,
yeah.
as well as your resiliency? I think those are the two things that are really necessary for every kid, no matter in the AI world or just life. Is how can you solve problems?
So I think that there's a few words that kind of get mixed up and interchanged. So there's like reading and then there's learning and then there's problem solving and then there's critical thinking I feel like a lot of school has to do with just memorizing and regurgitating versus like reading or learning something and then actually like creating new neural pathways
Right.
on how to think about that subject, right?
Well, and I think a lot of that comes down just to the standardization
Yeah.
tests that are now this required in every school is you must pass this standard test at every grade level. And so that's forced teachers to teach towards memorization, not towards solving a problem and coming to a solution.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the steam, that no pun intended, but that's really picking up steam. We've been at Anna ISD. We've seen the amazing STEAM lab that's been built over there at Anna High School, and I think that a lot of that, and it's very trade like too. I don't know about you, but I've always been of the opinion that IT, coding, cybersecurity is really more of a trade than it is more like white collar work. What do you think about that?
I think it is turning into it will be a skill that everyone will
Yeah.
have.
Highly skills based, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I know why it was knowledge base up until 2025, but in 2030, that may be the same skill that you have of interacting with your cell phone, is being able to code and build out your own personalized, customized app.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into robotics. So, UPS has officiated their deal with what's it called? Future AI.
Yes.
Sorry, Figure AI. My bad. My bad. Figure AI. I believe they're out of California, and they build humanoid bipedal robots. The robotics industry is really like booming very silently because there's so much AI noise. There's not a lot of attention being placed on robotics. There's a lot of cool advancements. So let's talk
Yeah.
about that, Jason. What do you think?
Yeah, so I actually saw a post on LinkedIn yesterday of evaluating how close we are to the Jetsons, and every single comment was, I still don't have Rosie. Who is going to fold my laundry, make my meals, all of that? Like
Yeah.
that's the bar of society of like, do we have Rosie as a maid robot that's in our house and being able to take care of our kids, take care of our food, and all of the things that most people don't enjoy about owning and maintaining a home.
Yeah. No, it's funny that the Jetsons are the standard. I personally would rather have that floating car. Um, but Rosie, it's funny. There's been an uptick in these sort of dystopian personal home robot movies lately. I don't know
Right.
if you saw the last one, Subservient, on Netflix. Have you seen that
Mm, no.
with Megan
You know
Fox?
I don't watch TV and movies.
I know you don't. But there's been a lot of very, like I said, dystopian and very negative framing of the in-house personal robot. But anyway, getting back to UPS and Figure AI, um, let's talk about what do you think the displacement's going to look like there?
I think it's definitely looking to take away those repeatable work, the work that require or that
Sorting and
typically
packaging,
lands
yeah.
to workers' comp, people get injured.
Yep.
I think that's where most companies are gonna focus on. I know we've spent some time down in Midlands in oil and gas, and that's one thing they're looking for. How can I reduce the injury to my employees by looking at utilizing humanoid robots or any type of robotic AI capability to do that job? So I think that's going to be the first one that'll be disrupted, and maybe that's why we have no Rosie is because you don't really get hurt too bad folding laundry.
So there is it's funny you mentioned that the human form is actually not the most optimal form for a lot of jobs,
Yeah.
especially physical labor jobs. There's actually a hotel, I cannot remember the name of it. They actually have laundry robots that
Hmm.
literally all they do 24/7, and they look like tiny little boxes on the floor. They have wheels, and they have this really long like arms that kind of like look like a praying
Can,
mantis.
can grab a
Yeah,
king size bed sheet and
yeah,
fold it
yeah. I
because
mean,
there's no human that can fold a king size bed sheet,
no,
especially the
no,
fitted one.
no. You need some really, really long arms for that one. But I think that we are going to slowly start to see more and more of this robotics presence. Up until now, it's just been really a toy, right? Like it's something like let's talk about drones, sort of the onset of drones. They've really just been play toys like you get,
Yeah,
for
camera,
Christmas.
cameras attached to it. Well, I mean, besides the wars, and now they're just using it as an attack vector. Yeah, I
Airstrike
mean, most
drones,
people
yeah.
were using it just to take pictures, realtors, like, scanning over areas.
Yep.
Yeah, so initially it was a toy. The rest of the world is using it as a weapon.
Yeah, yeah. I think in videography and photography, it's also very popular. Department of Defense, there was a lot of applications, but that really slowly onset, and we don't see a lot of it, around us. But drones have a really high market penetration, and now we're getting into ground-based robots, quadrupedal and bipedal robots, meaning four-legged. You may have seen the Kawasaki commercial of the hydrogen powered horse that they're building. Did you see
Yeah.
that?
Yes, I did.
That's
But
wild.
and I saw another one where they were walking a dog with a leash. I'm like, "No, sorry, we're not gonna go there. Let's get something that's functional, not
Speak,
don't need another animate or doing a pet."
Speaking of functional, there was a robot that came, or a small dog that came out, and it was really used for mental health purposes. It resembled a Furby. I don't know if you remember Furbies from back in the
Yep,
day.
yep.
But it looks actually more like a dog, and it's very furry and cuddly, and it has a lot of the similar mannerisms as a cute dog that cares for you and pays attention to you. So there are really good applications. And so now we're moving from that toy phase into real life practical
Functional.
applications and functional robots. So there's mental health use cases. At White Glove AI, we've stumbled into a number of practical use cases, as you were saying, in the oil and gas industry for really removing humans from sort of those accident prone jobs, right? There's a lot of accident prone jobs
Oh, yeah.
in the oil and gas industry. The particular use case we were looking at was for the transportation and logistics of the pipes or joints, right? That go underground. These pipes are typically stored in yards, and they are very, very heavy. They can crush you in an instant. If perhaps you're standing on a stack of them, it slips out from underneath you. If you watch Landman, there is a
Yeah, I
scene
was
in
gonna say
Landman.
that scene at the end where the guy was, jumping up and down on him and
Yeah, yep, he was
yeah,
standing on top of a
done.
truck. Yep, he's done. So that's all very real stuff. Although that was for cinematic purposes, it's all very real stuff. So I think that the oil and gas industry is definitely going to be disrupted. But let's talk about public safety, right? We had a really cool use case come up
Right.
in public safety. Let's talk about the fire dog.
That was a cool one. So,
Yeah.
I think was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago, you sent me that, the viral clip of this dog that, can go in and, plug into a fire hose and just stand there and just put out a fire by itself, which is quite impressive, and definitely, that's one of the reasons why firemen are so revered is because they'll go in and their own safety is not as important as helping others, and this has the ability to do that without putting a human life at risk, to be able to help assist those firefighters. I see it as another tool that they'll be able to use, just like the jaws of life and some of the other tools that they have that really have begun to help improve how they handle the situations that they're put into.
These dogs are fascinating. Okay, so they came from Unitree, and they have broken all sorts of, from what I understand, we're speaking to our partner here locally here in Frisco. There, His name's Don Garland with Drones Plus. They've been in the drone industry for a long time, just getting into the robotics industry over the past year or two. And he gave us a full education. I was baptized in robotics education yesterday. It was fascinating. So, from what I understand, NIST, the National Institutes for Standards and Technology, actually has four different testing sites for these robots across
Right.
the U.S. One's here in Texas, actually. And for the longest time, Boston Robotics, they have a dog that is supposed to be for public safety and firefighting called Spot. For the longest time, it's held the sort of the heavyweight title, but now Unitree's completely displaced it. Unitree has broken so many benchmarks that NIST has determined that it has to build a completely new facility because it's broken all of the capabilities that were previously thought to be limits for these robots. So let's talk about Unitree's dog. I believe it's called the Fire Dog, but
But I do like Spot. That
I
that
do
is
like Spot. Yeah, I do.
what you expected in the '80s of a dog that was a Dalmatian that's on the back of the fire truck.
Yeah, exactly. But this thing can go in advance of the firefighter. It has gas sensors that detects the levels of up to four different gases. It has a lidar camera, a thermal imaging camera to see through walls and see in very fiery situations perhaps the human body doesn't come up as warm as its surroundings, right? So the
Right.
fire is a lot hotter than the human's body. So it's very good at spotting different thermal sections in an image that could potentially be a human on the other side of a wall, let's say. It has the ability to carry, I believe, up to five times of its weight. It's fascinating, and the coolest thing, like you said earlier, Jason, is that it's able to connect a fire hose to the back of the dog, and then the front of the dog has an sort of an actuating nozzle that can point towards the fire, right, and suppress that fire. The most fascinating thing is that it's able to maintain its position and control that water despite the pressure of that water. And we know how.
Yeah.
I mean, people have been flipped around like it
Right.
looks like a
Yeah. No, it's
snake
a
that's gone around.
multi-person job, and it's one dog or one robotic dog can handle the whole thing by itself and be able to change directions and follow the fire to put it out. It's quite impressive.
It's really the one of them has so they have different attachments. One of them actually has like an arm, and the arm is able to pick things up and retrieve it and bring it back with it. So there are different models that do different things. So my imagination, we're going to be working with a local city that has a fire academy, like a training ground.
Okay.
So in June, we're going to be setting up. So if you're listening to this and you're in public safety, you know someone in public safety, and you're interested in being present at that event in the beginning of June, please do reach out to us at the White Glove AI website. We'd love to have you there. But it's basically going to be a dog and pony show to show how drones and now ground-based robots now can come together to really change how fast we can respond to this while also reducing the chances of human harm, right,
Right.
from the firefighters or even police departments.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to definitely change what the requirement is. You're going to have to be a bit more tech savvy to be in some of these jobs because you're going to be managing these sets of robots that are going to be out there um, doing the more high risk activities.
Going back to your days in the Air Force and intelligence community, did you have any experiences of going into one of those like unmanned aerial vehicle cockpits that were, in the rear? Have you been any of those?
We spent a lot of time. We got a lot of imagery from them, and that was really what we helped the warfighters in. from 2005 to 2016 was because of those aerials. I never got in one of them. I was in the facilities and things like that, and was able to see them. But it was completely changing how we would provide imagery right there, real time, so that they can see what's going on in the battlefield and not having to deal with stale intelligence.
So, in closing, I really think that it's just like any tool. It depends on whose hands it's in and what their intentions are.
Right.
Are they a good person or are they a bad person, right? A tool, like I always go back to a knife set. Knife sets are regularly available in most every household. I probably say 99.999 of households have knife sets in the kitchen, right? It's very standard, it's very common, it's very normal. Um, but it can and it's typically used for very good things like cooking dinner and things like that, but can also be used to do bad, right? There are a
Right.
lot of weapons of opportunity in the regular American household. So I think if we apply that lens to robotics and AI, we have to understand that it's going to be as good or as bad as we make it. And so it's really our responsibilities collectively to make sure that it's used for good. And that's why we exist. White Glove AI is to make sure that AI is used for good. Robotics are used for good. Any closing thoughts on this, Jason?
I think that there's so much opportunities out there. I think what we saw with Cluely, they're doing, truthfully, they're doing a lot of cool things. How they're getting that viralness of it, I'm not sure I fully agree with it, but I think they've got a pretty cool platform. The robotics and helping out in those high risk jobs is just going to be critical to help, being able to enable those in helping those people that are working in those types of roles. So I think if you're an executive and you've got those types of high risk jobs, this is definitely something you want to start considering. How can you start thinking about integrating that into your workflow?
Absolutely. Well, folks, that's all we have time for today. I do want to let you know that we've had an amazing time recording these live streams every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning. The data is in. We've been doing this for long enough to where we've noticed trends and patterns in our data. So we're currently heads down reevaluating a new schedule. We the good news, we will be on every week, but how frequently we're going to be on every week may change. So just want you to keep in mind if you're a regular viewer watcher. Um, it's been amazing doing these things, and we're going to continue doing them, just perhaps at a different frequency. So as we always say at the AI Executive, stay curious, stay innovative, and I'm going to add, just because I'm hosting today, just tinker, play. It's a lot of this is very fun. There's ways to mess it up if you're doing it on serious things, but start in places where the cost of mistake is low and just play, have fun. This stuff is really really cool. But anyway, we will catch you later on this week. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks,
Thanks.
Jason.